Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Muffed Punt podcast. My name is Brandon, and tonight we are having more NFL draft discussion. I'm here with the boys, and we are definitely super excited to get things going for this evening. How we doing, fellas?
I'm rocking my Bills jersey because apparently that has to be my team this year because Aaron Rodgers is now Karen Rodgers and he has turned into a baby back bitch and I don't like it.
Well, we had we this was a discussion that started back before we had video, so now you actually have the ability to rep it on screen. But remind everybody what came to be with this Josh Allen jersey. How did you end up with the Josh Allen jersey?
Well, I don't have any other jerseys because I've never really been a jersey guy, like, not since like middle school or anything. High school, I think I had a Reggie White jersey and a Brett Favre jersey, and that was about it. Um, but I thought that Josh Allen was kind of a little bitch and very overrated. And I've been saying that since he got drafted. And this year he really proved me wrong. And so we had a bet. I lost. And no, was it a bet or was it you guys just talked so much trash that I was like, all right, whatever. I'm gonna lean into this. And I bought a jersey and I bought his rookie card and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I'm really just leading into joining Bill's Mafia here as an honorary member. So they're my AFC team now.
There you go. There you go. I think it's all right because I mean we've talked about it before. Like if you have to ride or die with one team, or if you're allowed to have other teams that you like as well. And Paul, you know that when the Cubs went to the World Series and won, I've kind of adopted them as my other pseudo team, and they're like the two teams I mainly watch with baseball. And I'm like, it's okay. They're not in the same division. You know, the same conference, but not the same division. I can't you can't do two in the same division. That's too tough.
Yeah, that is. And so like when I was a kid, I loved baseball a lot more than I do now. Um, and the Brewers were my team in the AL, and the Cubs were my team in the NL. And then the Brewers switched from the AL to the NL. So I've had a big struggle going on for like 2/3 of my life here. So I know how that is.
Yeah, man, it's tough for sure. So, well, I'm definitely super excited to get into the draft talk. I think we've all kind of had some different feelings about things than what we did on the first night. So it's going to be kind of fun to be able to discuss where everything goes. I talked to Paul about it a little bit, and he said that he's totally fine, either way that we go with all this. So if it's cool with you, Paul, if we start off with the birds, would that be cool?
Only if you answered my question that I put in our group chat that you never answered about the Eagles.
I don't necessarily know where that delineation came from, but I would have to say that Philadelphia has definitely always been pretty synonymous with like nicknames and things of that nature. But I don't know, Terry. Do you know where the Birds nickname came from specifically with the Eagles? Like when that started? I don't know. I couldn't give you a specific point in time.
I mean, I know the franchise started in 1933, but I don't know. I would assume that,
So
at
not
one.
the first birds.
Yeah, that's.
Pretty
I
sure the
mean,
Chicago Cardinals had you on that one.
Paul's got a fair point that there are many birds in the NFL. So, but I just think it's always with anything. I mean, it's not like you're going to be calling them the birds with other birds people. I don't know what words to use in that particular instance. uh, but I get your point. I understand what you're saying with that.
I was just curious because there's so many birds themes out there in the wildlife. But yeah, let's sure. Screw it. Let's start with the birds, and we'll all know who that means.
All right, awesome. So I think for the Eagles, it was definitely a big surprise. I got this awesome picture of Jalen Hurts with the big smile on his face because I do think after this draft, he's going to be pretty happy. So in the first round, I was not expecting the Eagles to do business with the Dallas Cowboys, that's for sure. But we ended up with a pretty happy pick for me, which was Devonta Smith. I got his stats up there for 2020. As you saw, 13 games played, 117 receptions, 15.9 average per yards per catch, 23 touchdowns, 1,857 yards. And it's funny, I took the graphic we had of Jalen Rager, and then I made it into this graphic, and changing those stats around just put a big smile on my face because I'm like, man, I
Oh
just
yeah.
Lord, can I hope that this ends up being something that we can actually take a look at. So, before Terry gets started here, what I wanted to do is show you guys some real quick highlights. So, take a look at this because I unfortunately was not able to get highlights for last week for Smith, but I made sure I got them for this week. So, I hope you guys enjoy. It's one of the things that I really like about him when you watch him play is he does have that ability just to kind of, with the way he runs his routes, get open. He is super fast with that whole kind of Deshaun Jackson can get past the secondary and the defense, and he has the ability I love, what you can see with a lot of these, to get his feet down and on the edges there of the end zone. He has a really good awareness of where he's at pretty much at all times. Like his smarts, even when you watch him run his routes, where he puts his head against the defender to not let the defender know where he's going with his routes. Sometimes he'll even fake his head movement to the opposite side and then burst off to the other side. Like little things I love just watching about this guy play, I just feel like are fantastic. What do you guys see when you get a chance to watch the highlights?
I really liked I think it was the third highlight that you had of him playing against Notre Dame in that playoff game. That's a catch in the NFL. I mean, a lot of receivers sometimes take a little bit of adjustments before they can go from one leg down to two legs down. I mean, it looks like Devontae's been working on this for forever because that's an NFL catch and not an easy one. Um, I think that the Eagles are going to have to kind of put him all over the place. I don't think he's a wide out guy. I think that they're going to have to make up formations and do what Andy Reid kind of does with Tyreek Hill in order to get him open. Um, but I'm excited to see how his skill set translates into the NFL.
What about you, Terry?
Well, I mean, I'm I'm ecstatic that we got this guy. I mean, like just looking at all these, like this is his highlight tape is like 15 minutes long because he has so many plays. I mean, he just is like unbelievable. Um, I mean, I think he has all the tools that you want. I mean, just like starting from like coming off the line. I mean, he had the best win rate against press coverage in college football last year. Um, he never seems to get like, you know, knocked off his routes. He's definitely the best route runner in my opinion in the draft this year. Um, I think he does little there's little things that he does with the route too, where he like gears down and gears up when he needs to, kind of finds like, the soft spots in the zone or, um, is able to like avoid the big hit too, which is, that's the knock on him is he's small, but, um, it's those little things that are going to keep him, healthy. And he's done it really like extremely well on this college level against really high level SEC competition. Um, I mean, his hands are incredible. He doesn't seem to drop anything. And then once the ball's in his hands, I mean, this guy's a run after catch monster, and he's so smooth getting away from guys. He just hits that next gear and he's gone. So I'm I'm ecstatic. We finally hit on a player that fans can get excited about, and super productive college player, and he's all everything. I mean, obviously Heisman Trophy winner, All American. Is captain of the team. Eagles always love that stuff with those guys as well. They like team leaders. The one thing that I saw about him that I loved the most was he was on with Shannon Sharp, and he said, he asked him, he said, "So what are your goals and go come into the NFL?" And he said, Pro Bowl, 1,000 yard season, those things are all great, but he said, "I'm in it for the gold jacket," and like that's the kind of mentality that, as far as Philly sports fan, that's what we like to see in the players that are coming here. They got some confidence and they want to succeed. So I love it. I think it's probably one of the best first round picks the Eagles have had ever.
I think it's
So
funny that you had brought that up about the Club Shay Shay. I think that's the one you're
Yeah.
talking about that you
Yep.
saw.
Yep.
There was two things on there that I wanted to mention. One was that when he was talking to him about the national championship game and he was talking to him about the amazing performance that he had, one of the things that Smith brought up was the catch that he missed that he had then dislocated his finger on. And he's like, if I just caught that ball, I would have been totally fine. I did that totally to myself. And it's funny that to me, like, that's the kind of guy that Philly fans like, the guy that obsesses about the one that you screwed up versus, all the great things that you did because you want him to come back and be hungry for that like next time of showing out. And the other thing that I thought was interesting, and maybe Paul can speak to this a little bit too, is they talked about like he eats. He loves to eat, he cooks, but he said he doesn't gain weight. And I was like, interesting, because everybody keeps putting all this in about his size. I wonder if he'll actually be able to put on mass, considering apparently he's tried to be a little bit, he's tried to put on a few pounds and just can't do it.
that's kind of what I was going to bring up to Terry was so going into the draft, I was telling you that I was really high on Devontae, and you were a little more worried that he's a smaller guy. Because I mean, 6 foot, 170 ish, give or take 5 pounds, depending on where you're looking. Are you worried that he's gonna get injured, or you think he's gonna be okay? Do you think he's shifty enough in your eyes, or I think that that's the only real reservation that anybody had on him, which is why he fell as far as he did. I mean, fell. That's obviously a very loose term when he went 10th, but if he had like Jamar Chase's build, I think he could have gone number 4 ahead of Pitts. So I'm just curious as to where you are in that.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that's why Chase and Waddle went ahead of him, was the size factor. But I mean, I am a little bit worried about his size. The 6 foot's nothing, but the 160 pounds, that is pretty light. The only thing that I can kind of hold my hat on is that he's been pretty much a full-time starter for them for 4 years, and I've never seen him take a big hit. He's never really had any kind of significant injury, maybe a little something here or there, like an ankle or whatever. Um, it's a little bit of a concern, but I just think with the overall amount of production, I don't think you can pass up a talent like that. Um, I think it's the right decision considering the Eagles' absolute needs for like a dynamic, like an electric playmaker, difference maker in the pass game, which you know everybody says, oh, he's kind of you kind of compare him size wise and everything to Deshaun, but I mean, watching this guy's overall game, he's far superior to Deshaun coming out, and I mean, right now he's a better route runner probably than Deshaun is right now, and his hands are better. So I mean, I can get behind that all the way, and I'm sure that the coaching staff's gonna um, they're going to move him around in the offense. And, you know, I would hope, as a big hope, I would hope that Jalen Hurts, wouldn't hang him out to dry with a throw like that, where he could get hit. But he always seems to just kind of sit down and find a spot where he's not really going to take a big hit. So I'm not so much worried. I'm just excited with the level of talent that we're getting at that place, even, and then additionally we moved up, we swapped spots with the Cowboys, not fun to have to give up a third round pick to go up that small of a jump, but to get him and make sure that we have him and not the Giants, I think it's a solid move all around. And
I
I think we
can't tell
did pretty
you
well in that situation.
how much fun I had watching the Giants fans' reactions when I went back and watched it, and they're all like, "Oh, we got Smith, we got Smith," and then it's like trade alert. They're like, "No!" Oh, it was
I
awesome.
forget that there was that one guy out there, and he was he was so mad about what happened. He was ready for it. He's ready for Smith to be their pick, and then he's like, "What's going on here?" He's like, "The Eagles, the Cowboys traded." He was about to he was about to lose his mind. It was great, and you know, I'm frankly I'm happy about it. You know, so
I think that this
made
is
out.
at least temporarily the way that the NFL is going to go for a little bit, because you've had such big things out of Tyreek Hill and Mikael Coleman. I mean, obviously you have an amazing quarterback there too, and Andy Reid, who's one of the best offensive minds the game has ever seen. So you've got that working for them. But I think he's a lot smarter than Deshaun ever was. I don't know if you ever watched or saw any of his highlights, but Deshaun Jackson in his high school All-American game, the Army one, he tried to jump from the 5-yard line into the end zone and fell short. And then you've got that play in the NFL where he dropped the ball at like the 6-inch line. Well, he did
Yeah.
that once in high school too. So
Yeah, he did that a couple of times in his career in high school and college.
Well, dude, when he came back from being injured in that game versus, was it the Redskins at the time? And Wentz ends up throwing that bomb to him, and then he front flips into the end zone and re-hurts himself on like the first play he was back. And it's like, dude, you just got back from injury. Maybe don't front flip into the end zone. Maybe you could just run it in there and be back for the next play. But nah,
Nope,
whatever. Can't do it.
Can't do it.
Yeah, see that's like another thing is that, like, you know, obviously Deshaun was, you know, he liked the flash and all that stuff. This guy, he couldn't care less about any of that stuff. All he's worried about is scoring and getting back there and doing it again the next play. Um, One thing that you did bring up, Paul, that he said, like you said, we're saying, you know, Tyreek Hill in the new NFL. I think that also plays in his favor as well, because let's be honest, the defensive backs, it's hands off now. So even if they wanted to press them, you know, they're not really gonna be able to get too much into this guy, and the way he moves and cuts his routes. I feel like he's kind of the right player for right now in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. I'm excited to see what he does. And as far as not having like the flash that Deshaun had, he played for Nick Saban. Do you think Nick Saban would have allowed anyone to do that? Like there's a chance that in an alternate universe, Deshaun played college football for Nick Saban and Deshaun never Deshauned things. So
You know, I still think it's pretty interesting between the two of them that Waddle went first. What do you think about that, Paul? I was going to ask you before we got off of the Smith topic. I know you watched a lot more Bama football than either one of the other two of us. Did you get a chance to see any of the Jalen and Smith time together, or like do you feel like those two had any kind of like? I know it was a short lived, because it was at the time Smith wasn't like, Waddle was the number one, not Smith, because Waddle hadn't gotten hurt yet, and Jalen was probably just coming off being a backup, right?
well, I mean, you've got to look at the wide receivers that they've had go in the first round in the last 2 years. They had Henry Ruggs III, Jerry Jeudy, Devontae Smith, and Jalen Waddle.
Yeah.
I mean, they all played together. I've been watching Bama since high school. I the only thing about Jalen is he's got a bigger build. So which is funny because he's the one who got injured, and Devontae didn't. But I mean, they're the same guy. So if you've got Tua and Tua says, "Hey, get me this guy instead of that guy," why be the Packers in that situation? Just do what Tua wants you to do, and take whoever Tua wants. So I don't think that, I mean, either one of, if you take any one of those four wide receivers in the first round, I'm good with it. So to me, it doesn't really matter all that much. It just goes down to the bond that they had, and I'm totally fine with it.
Do, to your knowledge, do you think from what you saw that they had any chance to build any rapport? Because I don't, did they get a chance to play together for very long?
Who, Devontae and Jalen?
And Jalen, yeah.
Yeah, they played together for years. Because I mean, they had they had Steve Sarkisian as their offensive coordinator. So they had 4 wide receiver sets. They'd have times where one of the other ones was off the field and just catching a breather. But if
Okay.
you take any one of those 4, they all had rapport together. They all played really unselfishly together. So I think if you can put them around some talent, that you're going to see a lot of big numbers come out of all 4 of them over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I think I was just surprised, if anything else, that at the end of the day, that's we ended up getting kind of what we wanted out of the situation. I mean,
Yeah, I don't like it.
I
I
think
was waiting for Howie to Howie, and he didn't
Yeah.
Howie. So I was like, what is this?
as Eagles fans, I think that's what we were waiting for this entire time. We just kept waiting for things to go wrong, and it just didn't happen, fortunately. But I think we can move on to the second round. In the second round, the Eagles selected Landon Dickerson. Uh, he is the center from Bama as well, correct?
Yes.
Yep.
And he was a consensus All American in 2020, won the Dave Remington Trophy in 2020, which is before the most outstanding college center. And somebody had a pretty awesome mock up there. It was a picture from Bama, but they superimposed the Eagles jerseys on them. So I had to throw that one in there. I thought that was really cool. So what did you guys think? Were you happy with this particular pick for the Birds? I think the big knock on him is his injury history. Paul and I were talking about it a little bit right before we started the show. He's blown out both of his ACLs and he had an ankle injury. So what did you guys think about this one?
Terry, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, sure. I like the player. He would have been probably a top 20 pick in the first round if he doesn't blow that ACL out in the SEC championship game. But it is, the Eagles and picking guys with, injury histories, let alone his, which is a little bit longer of a list than most. It's a little worrisome. Um, there was a few guys on the board at that point that, I was kind of looking at, but I know the way the Eagles operate, and they love linemen, and especially um, linemen with pedigree like he has. I mean, the guy's, he's going to be able, he's going to play either starting center or starting guard in the NFL. He could play both guards probably, and he's also got the versatility that he used to be able to play tackle. Um, so he gives you a lot of options as far as where you can move him around, where he can come in and have a spot start if he needs to, for a guy at guard or even tackle if it's need be. I don't think he's going to be put at tackle, but definitely the versatility is great. Plus, he's an absolute mountain of a dude. I mean, 6'6", 333. Every time that every highlight I saw of him, I mean, he's just literally just wiping dudes out. I mean, like the one he was lifted the guy backwards and just basically tossed him. I mean, he's unbelievable. The injury thing is a concern, but I mean, in this case, I think it's worth the risk because um, you've got another one of these, captain type guys, culture guys. Um, Stoutland's in Alabama, a former Alabama coach, so he's definitely going to, love having this guy on his line. And you know, I just think it's worth it because the Eagles are also in rebuild mode, so you don't have to put him in right away. Give him some time to get healthy, and you've got, you know, a really good strength there, and a guy that can take Kelsey's spot when he's ready to retire.
Yeah, if you're watching the highlights, he's number 69 center for Alabama. And I think you'll see that he does a pretty good job in getting out first and winning the battle with his hands. And just when you watch the highlights, this is versus I think it's Mizzou, and I mean obviously they killed Mizzou in this game, so it's just not like it's that impressive, and as far as that goes. But I think you'll get to see the way he plays in this clip pretty well.
Yeah, I think that this guy is very much worth the risk. He is a very big human being, 6'6", 330 and change. I also think that if he didn't have the injury history, that he's easily a top half of the first round guy. And I think he has the potential to be the best interior lineman in the draft. It all comes down to what he's gonna do as far as getting hurt again or not. Um, but he's strong, he's mean, he centered that line. Winning the Remington isn't an easy thing to do. Um, and the other part that I like about it, so I liked that Waddle and Ruggs and Devontae, they all had to go against Patrick Surtain the last few years in practice. Well, this guy had to go up against Barmore every day in practice. So I think that when you've got two guys who are that good hitting each other every day, they're only going to make the other one better. So I don't know a lot of centers that went up every single day in practice against a tackle that's close to as good. So I think that it's going to work out real well as long as he can stay healthy.
I'm glad that you said that because it reminded me that in the Club Shay Shay thing, Smith had said that the week leading up to the national championship game, he went up to Sertain and was like, "Yo, you and me all week long, we are battling this out and we are getting ready because I'm not losing another one of these games." And it was awesome, man. It was really cool to see that.
Yeah, I love stuff like that. And I mean, a lot of people complain that it's always Clemson and Alabama in the playoffs, and there's been talk of expanding the college playoffs to anywhere from 8 to 12 teams over the next couple of years, because people don't want to see Alabama and Clemson. But when you accumulate that much talent year in year out, they had Alabama had 6 first round picks this year. When you can have 6 first round picks and then just be able to plug guys in, and they'll likely be at least the contender in the SEC next year, if nothing more, then you're just it's it's ridiculous. I can't imagine teams being this good in college, and especially with what the spread formation has done for college football ever since the early 2000s, when you had some of the teams who couldn't compete switching over because it made it more difficult to cover them. Now you've got all these teams that used to get all that talent getting all the talent again. So it's nice when you can see people who just make their teammates that much better.
Yeah, definitely. I think for the Eagles, I wasn't too upset with this one, other than there was you could have went with Asamoah, or was it? I'm gonna keep messing that up because I keep thinking Namdi, but it's Owusu. That's what it was.
Owusu Koromora.
Yeah, I always get Namdi Asamoah in my head when I thought of that guy for
Oh,
some
God.
reason. I don't know why.
Just get rid of him. Just let him go, dude.
Yeah, he's gotta go eat lunch in the parking lot by himself. By far my favorite Eagles story on that
Oh
one.
my God.
But like Owusu was still on the board. There was a couple other guys that were still around that I felt like we could have gotten with that particular pick. But I mean, obviously, time will tell if he ends up being able to be a Kelsey replacement when all things are done. Because I think Kelsey maybe has 1 or 2 years left if he doesn't get a chance to go over to the Chiefs. I really don't know why you could be too upset with it, other than the injury part of it.
No. Plus the rebuild this year. I mean, you don't have to rush him onto the field, so you can give him plenty of time to
I
come
think
back.
if you
healthy.
have high expectations for the Eagles this year, you're just being unreasonable.
I think that they're a playoff contender.
I think anyone in the NFC East is a playoff
Yeah.
contender.
Yes.
Except the Giants. Watch, I said that, and the Giants are going to the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, hey, man, they got a hell of a wide receiving core this year. That's for sure.
Yeah, if only they had someone who played quarterback.
Yep. Oh, boy. All right. Third round coming up here for the Birds. We had the third round pick, Milton Williams. I think for this one, it was more of the sleeper pick. I know he had a lot of comparisons to Aaron Donald. I don't know if you guys had kind of felt that way with him or not, but I'm just going to let the highlights speak for themselves once I can get everything queued up here in just a second. And he had 10 games played, 22 tackles, 23 assists, 45 total tackles, 10 tackles for loss, and 4.5 sacks. One of the things that I like with him is that he does a great job with being able to block the run. And I think that's one of the things that you'll see with these highlights as well. He does an amazing job with just getting in the backfield and disrupting the offense. Whether he's going after the quarterback or whether he's stopping the running back, I really feel like he has a nose for where the ball's going to go. So I know he didn't play in a huge conference or against really big competition, but I do think that when you watch the highlights, he does stand out. What do you guys think?
I
he
mean,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
there.
No, you go ahead.
All right. Um, I I like him as a defensive lineman. I don't know that I love him as a defensive tackle just because of his height. When you have people who are that big, a lot of times they struggle with their pad level. So you're going to have some of these centers who aren't as big as the one that you guys just drafted, and they're going to be able to kind of get up under their pads and move him. So I'm very interested to see what he does against the talent level that's in the NFL, having played at Louisiana Tech. Um, Obviously, he's got the frame, the strength, and everything. He seems to have a nose for the quarterback when he's back there, and I mean he hits people real hard, so he's never going to complain about that. I just worry about his height a little bit, a few inches too tall for me.
Yeah, obviously number 97 on the clip. So when you're watching that, keep an eye on 97. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I mean, we know that the Eagles seem to like to have, they love versatility all over, but this guy kind of seems like I mean, they had him. Looks like for most of these games, he was playing more of a three technique, but I could see him being like a three technique in the NFL on, passing downs. Eagles. But I don't know what the new coaching staff's going to use. They used to use that, NASCAR package where they bring in like all their, small, speedy, kind of guys, move them inside, kick them inside a little bit. I could see him maybe getting a little bit of a rotational role in that regard, but I did notice in the run game on the tape, like that's where I can see where maybe some of the slight comparisons to Aaron Donald is, because he seems to like find the ball quickly and plug the hole, or he's able to even like kind of move across the lineman to get over there in support. So I definitely think he's more. I definitely think he's a little bit more of a project, but I think it's worth it based off of the analytics numbers and whatnot. The the numbers like that he put up are insane. Um, I saw one clip on him that I think the 40 was, I think he ran a 4.67, which at 6'3", 285 is pretty good. But then all the rest of his numbers, I think they had him compared athletically to Stokes, the corner from
Georgia.
Georgia that Green Bay drafted. So, I mean, I feel like even if you are taking a little bit of a risk on a guy that like that, might not be as productive, there might have been some other guys there. I know this pick was contested in the Eagles war room, causing look, I thought it was Tom Donahoe wasn't too happy about who they took, but um, I think it's worth the pick. I mean, you also have down the road, you gotta start finding replacements for Fletch. BG, Barnett could be going after this year. So this guy's worth, I think, a little bit of risk, but he definitely looks like he could blossom into a pretty good player.
As a third round pick, I think he's great. This is exactly the guy I think you take a risk on with a mid round pick like this. So I have no problem with it. Do you know if the Eagles are going to play a 3-4 or 4-3 with the new staff?
From what from what I've heard, they're going to play like a base 4-3, but I've they were talking about it on Comcast. They were saying that they may actually have some like hybrid looks where they move into kind of like a 3-4. So this guy could work really well in that as a 3-4 end. So I feel like this is probably to kind of load up guys like that. Um, and then obviously he can get coached up and he could be, maybe he ends up as a 4-3 defensive end, down the road a little bit.
I don't know if I like him as a defensive end. I mean, I have to see more of him outside, but I think as a three technique in a 4-3, I think he's a great fit.
I think that the Eagles were worried just about having depth at that position because they really felt like they think that after Fletcher Cox and Hargraves, they just didn't really have anything to roll in there anymore. So I think that they were looking to kind of fill up that need of depth on the defensive line. Although we all said we thought that they were pretty like stacked there versus any other position that they had. I still felt like that's where their heads were with that pick.
Yeah, we know their track record for drafting on the lines. So
Oh, give me one sec, guys.